Hello everyone, I just want to welcome you back to my YouTube channel. Today is Friday, September the 10th, and it's a little bit after 1 o'clock. Today I'm going to do part 4 of Finding Love in Uncommon Places. So what I'm going to do, in the last video I shared a lot about my relationship with my mother. So I'm going to go back a little bit further and just add a few more comments about that before proceeding with kind of a new topic. So I'm going to go back to prior to me leaving Georgia to go to Tennessee, which would have been in somewhere around 2000, June, July 2015. So, So, I'm just going to pick up there, basically around the time that I left Georgia to go to Tennessee. And it was really during this time, and I'm trying to remember if it was when I left Georgia to go to Tennessee, or no, it was actually prior to me leaving to go to North Carolina. Yeah. So it would have been 2017. Yeah, like February 2017. Which is when I came back to Georgia, and then I left for North Carolina in May of 2017. So I was only back for a few months, and within that time period, I found a job, started working again, and so, and let me just preface this by saying I'm not saying all of this to make my mother look bad or anything of that nature. I'm just kind of telling you some details about our relationship. So it was during this particular time that my mother just became extremely like abusive, like verbally abusive towards me. And it just became a very toxic relationship. And I just never would have thought that like she would be that way towards me. Again, just not knowing like why there had been such a change in her as far as her behavior towards me and how she was treating me. Clearly I was going through some challenges, trying to get back on my feet again, but I was just met with constant, really verbal abuse, constantly putting me down, calling me names, and just not supportive at all, And it really began to weigh on my spirit. I would confront her about it, and yet nothing would change. So at the time that I left to go to North Carolina, I really felt like I didn't have a choice. It was it was just something I had never gone through before. I had never been in an environment where I was, just constantly being put down and called names and berated. And it was all, coming from my mother. It was really difficult for me to handle. And when I left for North Carolina, my honest feeling was like, it felt like something in me was dying. Like, if I don't get out of here, I am going to die. Like something in me spiritually is going to die if I allow myself to remain in this situation, in this toxic environment. where I'm constantly being called names and put down. So it was such a it was such a difficult thing to deal with, because again, I had never been in an environment like that before, and I certainly didn't expect my mother to be, the perpetrator of that type of behavior. And then on top of that, she really couldn't give me any feedback as far as like why she was doing this, why she had suddenly turned against me. Just nothing. I knew I wasn't doing anything to her. This was all coming from her. So anyway, like I said, I had never had to deal with that before. And so, as I stated, when I left for North Carolina, it was literally like something in me was going to die, or was slowly dying if I did not get out of that situation. And so I felt like I basically had no choice except to leave. And as I kind of reflect back on it, I was thinking about like people who are in very toxic relationships, where there's a lot of arguing and fighting and abuse, disrespect. Like I kind of liken it to that, because I was like, there's no way I could stay in something like that. Just based on, what I went through with my mother, I was like, I could not function in a relationship where there's that kind of just toxicity, abuse, just the very fact, the lack of peace. Because I've always stated, my peace means everything to me. And just going through that with my mother, and just thinking about people who are in relationships like that, where there's always arguing and fighting, and I just could not do that. I couldn't do it. So, yeah, so when I left for North Carolina, that was where I was. And I remember during that time I was working, and I was catching the bus, I think 2 buses and a train to get to work. Lived on the south side of town, worked all the way on the north side of town. It would take me like almost 3 hours to get to work one way. And I mean, so many times on the bus I would be, or on the train, just thinking about, my move, thinking about the situation, weighing it very carefully, because I really didn't want to leave my mother alone. But at the end of the day, I had no choice because of how I was being treated, and just that whole feeling of, I am going to die if I stay here. Something in me is going to die if I allow myself to stay in this type of an environment. So, so I left. And, but not until I had really given it a lot of thought, And, yeah, I had to do what was best for me. And, and having said that, I've just really had to work on forgiveness, as it pertains to my mother. Just really making a decision to forgive and to love. regardless. I always go back to the fact that she's still my mother, and I want to honor her as best I can, even though our relationship has changed. Yeah, so I am pretty at peace because I believe I have truly forgiven her. I think if I had not forgiven her, I wouldn't even be speaking to her at this point. But thankfully, God has allowed me to walk in a level of maturity, even though I don't understand why she did the things she did or was treating me so poorly. I had to choose to forgive. And I have forgiven her. And so that's why I continue to speak with her, have a relationship with her. No, it's not the same, but nevertheless, we still communicate. I can call her, she can call me. We still have a relationship, although it's different. So the Lord actually gave me a poem. I actually wrote a poem about the situation with my mother, and it's called A Million Miles Apart. And in it, I just speak about all the things, that we went through this whole experience. And the whole point of the poem is just that, someone can be very close to you in proximity, but yet you're still a million miles apart as far as your hearts, because they've chosen to follow a different path than you, so to speak. So, although my mother is close in proximity at times, we're still very far apart. So that's why I named the poem A Million Miles Apart. But nevertheless, we're still working on things. But yeah, that's all I have to say. This video was longer than I thought it would be. So there will be a part 5. Thanks for listening.